As I was preparing for this Sunday and reading the scriptures, the line that struck me so strongly was, "For I am gentle and humble of heart." Gentle and humble in heart. Lucy and I got back last night from 3 days in New York City. We visited New York last on the day that we arrived in North America 33 years ago. We were severely jet-lagged, we were exhausted, we were disorientated and overwhelmed. Coming from a small, quiet town in the northeast of England, New York seemed to shout, "Big buildings, drunks asleep on the sidewalk, sunlight to fry your eyes, police officer with huge gun, man in food truck demanding impossible decisions on 8 sorts of bread, 12 kinds of filling, 4 sorts of lettuce, 10 condiments." It was so ungentle, so unhumble of heart that we fled and never went back. Until this week. We've over 33 years in North America, we've got past the shock value of a lot of things that we saw there. But it's still not gentle or humble of heart. It's fast, it's bright, it's brash, it's confident, it's a lot of fun, and there's great beauty there. But gentle and humble of heart doesn't quite catch it, and I must say, when we got back to Toronto last night, I thought, this is more my kind of city. It's not entirely gentle nor entirely humble, but it's a lot closer to that. So, what I'm going to do to you today is very unfair because it's the middle of the summer and it's a smallish congregation, so I'm going to get you to do some work and I'm going to ask you questions and I want you to shout out answers. This is very invasive, I know, but you know, I'll be gone soon, so you won't have to worry. When you think of gentle and humble in heart, is there anybody that you think of that kind of carries some of that with them? Is there anybody that you could say, oh, my Uncle Bert or great-grandmother Esther or something? Is there anybody that, when you think, who do I know that is gentle and humble of heart? Eleanor. Okay. Thank you. Anybody, you know, famous characters, you may think of Gandhi or one of the popes or anything that strikes you? Does this image, gentle and humble of heart, tie up with anybody?
I think of my dad.
Your dad?
I think of my grandmother on my father's side.
Your grandmother on your father's side. Yeah. Not everybody's going to have someone, but sometimes those moments arise. If you needed some guidance from someone who is gentle and humble of heart, what kind of words might you expect to hear? If you met somebody gentle and humble of heart, and you sort of, oh, I'm so glad to meet you. I really need you to say something gentle and humble to my heart. What might you like to hear? This is a hard question. I'll listen. A gentle and humble heart person would listen. Yeah. So you're just looking. You're still learning. So that, yes, to acknowledge that there's a kind of a growingness in this. It's not instant. It's not like, what is the answer to 5 plus 7? And then you've got it. But it's a growing thing. In order for someone to be gentle and humble of heart, do they need to be pretty well off? Do they need to be very poor? Does it matter? Doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think so. What's the opposite of gentle and humble of heart? Donald Trump. How quickly that sprang to mind. Selfish, yeah. Proud. Any other words? All about me, yeah. Narcissistic, yes. 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 I'm feeling all of these going in like small darts, I've got to tell you. When Jesus, just hold that, all the things you've said together and the thoughts that you've got in your heads. And think when Jesus says, the only way to know God, the Father, is by knowing God's Son, Jesus. If you know Jesus, you see God, not physically, but in spirit. Jesus kind of says, I'm the lens, I'm the telescope, I'm the broad band through which you see God the Father. And he says at the beginning of that, and I am gentle and humble of heart. What's he saying about the Father? What's the image of God the Father that Jesus has? When he says this very precise thing, no one can know the Father unless they know me. I know the Father. I alone know the Father, and those I reveal him to. There's something in here about God as God the Father is gentle and humble in heart. And in a lot of our history, as the church has been kind of the spokesperson for the state as well, the state has used churches. Almost every great leader pulls in the religious faith system to back up their claims for whatever it is they'd like to have a lot of. And God often gets portrayed as very triumphant and magisterial, and angels are often portrayed with large swords and spears and shields and armor. And I sometimes think, gentle and humble in heart. I'm having a quick survey of the windows. I think the windows in here are pretty okay. But sometimes I feel that the way the church has portrayed God doesn't have that gentleness and humbleness of heart.
Through Jesus is the understanding and the way to the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah. Yeah, through Jesus is the way to the kingdom of heaven. I'm the gate, he says. I'm the path. And again, Jesus brings us back to that sort of thing. So it was this Sunday, it was just that gentle and humble in heart. It really struck me that it is very low to the ground. When we were in New York, we were visiting with a friend of ours who's a retired officer of the Salvation Army. And she lived for a long time in New York, and she was in civvies as we walked around. And what really struck me about her was when if we got a taxi somewhere, she would always talk to the driver. She'd on a bus or a subway, she'd talk to the person next to her, and she would talk to. She really was indiscriminate. She'd talk to anybody, and she'd begin a conversation, and then she'd say, so tell me, what are you doing? How's it going? And within less than 30 seconds, she had developed a kind of trustworthy bond of intimacy. And there was no great outpourings of hearts and lifelong stories, but there was something about this. And as we were talking, she said to me, after all these years of working as a Salvation Army officer around the world, all over the place, and dealing with a vast range of people and theologies, she said, it's about kindness. It's about respect. It's about approaching someone with love. For her, that was what it all boiled down to, because the Salvation Army, they're pretty close to the ground. They don't have highfalutin theology, and they don't have pretty clothes like me. They're just on the ground in a uniform, which is, it keeps you grounded. And her experience of living out the faith, proclaiming the presence of Christ in the midst of the people that she worked with, who were very often of different ethnicities, cultures, and religions, was this doggedness to approach each person as someone that God already loves and to speak to them heart to heart. And she really was a person of gentleness and humbleness of heart. And in the midst of this great swirling mass of New York, she elicited gentleness and humbleness of heart from probably a dozen people in the time that we walked together. I think watching her, and you will notice in my sermons, I keep coming back to this, I think the faith is partly a theory, partly the teachings of scriptures, but most importantly, trying to live it, trying to make it day by day a reality so that it affects who you are and how you behave. I think that's the work of our faith. That's the discipline of being a disciple. And Jesus says, this is serious and intentional work, following me. But it's not the serious and intentional work of being a disciple in the Marine Corps, where you have to be able to, very muscularly crawl through 300 yards of mud and break open the door with your hardened eyelashes, or something like that. Jesus says, be my disciple. Take my yoke on you. Bear the load that I'm giving you. It's like, put on my backpack. And then he says, take my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle. I'm humble of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. We don't carry yokes. The last time human beings carried yokes were in those medieval paintings of people with yokes on and a bucket of milk on each side. We don't really do yokes very much. But I think for me, the image that I take from that is like putting on a piece of clothing. It's like putting on a t-shirt, or putting, just wrapping a shawl around your shoulders. It's in wrapping yourself up, clothing yourself in something which you're trying to become. You're working constantly, trying to become what this piece of clothing represents. To imagine that as you go out in the morning, to put on the yoke of Christ, to wrap yourself in some invisible shawl, something that you will carry with you. That's why some people carry crosses, and some people wear a certain bracelet or a certain ring. But to put something around you, at least in your imagination, that all day you're going to try and carry that, to wear it, to help lift other people's weights, the loads that they carry, to live out this gentleness and humbleness of heart in the midst of the people you're talking to and meeting. And Jesus says that if you want to know the Father, you've got to know me. And if you want to know me, you have to know that I am humble, gentle. And you need to be too. So that I think the spiritual discipline of following Christ is a lot about that. And being low to the ground. So no one is too low for you to talk to. No one is too unacceptable for you to spend time with. And there is no need to go chasing the high and the mighty or becoming one of them. Your invitation is to carry an easy burden and to find rest for your heart. Doing this, Jesus says, should not lead you to exhaustion, physical, mental, or spiritual, but should give rest to your soul and peace. Thank you.